Au revoir.
All right, I'm going to start. All right, go for it. Sorry. All right, welcome to another episode of FitPet Boston Talks. My name is Leah Lodato. I'm the host of the show, and today I am joined by Samantha O'Brien and Katrina Riley, who have been on the podcast before. So if you haven't checked out the episodes that they were on, please do. We had a really good time chit-chatting, and we did talk about their lives, their dogs, and their careers. And today, we're not going to do that. We're going to dive into a specific topic and just kind of see where the wind takes us. But the whole reason why we kind of gathered together is Sam and I were talking via message after a pretty tragic event happened, I think down south somewhere, that I'm not going to talk too much about, involving a couple of bully breed dogs mauling some of their family members, and it was just a absolutely horrible event. But I shared a reel on my Instagram story from Maligator Mom, who is somebody that I follow. Do you guys follow her?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She's great.
Love her.
Love her too. And she has like basically a kennel of Malinois. I don't know how many personal dogs she has, but she also has a family, like little kids. So I really appreciated the advice that she was giving and just the recognition that, you know, some of these dogs that we have in our homes are really powerful animals, and to kind of divorce the idea that they have a genetic component that is dictating their behavior is really dangerous. So today I just wanted to talk about who your dogs are genetically and how that differs from, you know, conditioning. There's multiple elements that go into your dog's behavior, right? The environment, their genetics, conditioning. And what I don't want is people to think that a dog's behavior is only contingent on one of those things. And I know a lot of people that listen to the podcast, you know, you only get your dog information from Laurie and I, and we really appreciate that very much. But I do feel a little bit of a responsibility to debunk myths, because after this particular story came out, we did have a couple clients ask me about it and what I thought. And I didn't have too much to say because it was pretty horrific, and I don't want to weigh in on stuff that, you know, A, I don't know the whole situation, and B, it's just like a super sensitive issue. But I think having the conversation about genetics and about who your dog is and how we can, you know, help them be a member of society, I think it's a great conversation to have. And as Sam and I were talking, she brought up a story about her dog, Zeus. And I said, would you be willing to share this on the podcast? Because I think it might be interesting for people to hear. So I'm just going to let her tell you about her dog, Zeus. Katrina's going to chime in where she sees fit. And we're just going to kind of see where this goes.
Should I start with that one? Or should I start with puppyhood?
We can start with puppyhood.
Okay.
Tell us about Zeus, who he is.
All right. So Zeus is the best boy ever. No one has ever heard a bad story about him. But even as a puppy, I think I picked him up at 6 weeks old. Very, very young. Should not have even been separated from his mom. But honestly, the situation he was in was also not great. So it's like, okay, so if he's on kibble, I guess I can do what I can for socializing, all that stuff. So I take this dog in, and he's awesome. At the time, I didn't know dog parks were bad, all that stuff, whatever. I did some play dates with other people that had the like litter mates of him. And one story specifically, I remember I had one of his sisters over because one of my acquaintances, I guess you could call him, had that dog. And I was like, all right, cool. I'll have like a play date. You guys can just dip or you can stay, whatever. I don't know. But I remember they were like 8 or 9 weeks old. And I was like, they haven't been separated for that long. This is cool. Let's just do it. And I feel like I had to separate at least like 3 or 4 like fights. And I didn't think about it at the time. At the time, I was like, oh, that was like weird. But I remember like now looking back, I'm like, all right, that the girl dog was like getting wicked, like head over the shoulder and like super like kind of like frisky stuff. And he was like not having it at all and was just like, nope, not happening. And he was just trying to avoid, because to this day, I call him the avoidance king. And I wish I noticed it sooner. Like I wish I knew what avoidance looked like, because I would have been able to prevent so many uncomfortable situations with that dog, because he always chooses avoidance first. But in situations that he chooses that first and then they progress, I also always say he'll never start it intentionally, but he will absolutely end it.
Right.
So I remember like 8 or 9 weeks old, they're like having these weird little like fights. And at that point, I don't even know if I could like quote myself with saying like it's all on how you raise them. Wouldn't put it past my 20-year-old self.
Right.
But I definitely at that point, that was when I was PetSmart trainer. Remember those days? And I was like, definitely full responsibility ends on like owners, you know? It was like, I got to be the best owner that I can be. I have a pit bull type dog. Everyone has a stigma about them. So I'm going to do what I can to like, you know, I guess show people that like they're not all that bad, you know? Or just train them up to like the best of my ability and see where we go. But I definitely remember that when he was super, super young. And then other instances as he got older, he was probably like 2 years old when I was doing the off-leash pack walks. Maybe he was like 3. Definitely mentally matured, neutered super early, like we talked about before, which we can circle back on if you want.
Yeah, sure. Talk about it.
You want me to dive into neutering and then I'll go into situational stuff?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did you say what kind of dog Zeus is or whether
Oh my
or not
God.
you had
So
any information about his parents?
I do. So I showed up to meet these dogs. A friend recommended me to these people. Hey, they have puppies if you want one. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. 20 years old, still living with my parents. Their lab, Emily, was going blind. So I was like, perfect. This is great. Why not bring a puppy into this? Told my parents he was a lab mix. And they were like, hell yeah, let's go. Because Emily's a black lab. And I was like, this would be great. So I get Zeus. I go to meet him. I think they just opened their eyes. So it was like maybe 3 weeks old when I first like saw them. And then I went back and visited at 4 weeks. And that's when he like picked me, which that's another genetic crazy thing. So I'll go into that too. So when I met him for the first time, they were like these little like pot belly things, like
so
whatever.
What were they marketing these the puppies as?
There was no marketing.
Was it an intentional breeding or was it an accident?
No, it was an accident.
Okay.
So his mom was like this, like not when she was not pregnant. I would assume her weight was like probably like 50 pounds.
Okay.
She's this little like what the world would call a blue nose pit bull.
Okay.
You know, she's a little gray thing, real cute. And I was like, okay, I could handle like a 50-pound dog. That's fine. Cool. They had just adopted her. I don't know from where. But they were like, oh, she kept like gaining weight and looking bigger. And it took us a little while to figure out like we should have her seen by the vet. And then to come to find out she was pregnant. And then they knew, I want to say she may have been fostered with someone else. I just amazes me that she was not spayed. I don't know. Whatever. Not going to judge that. But they had photos of the dad, looked nothing like Zeus. And Zeus, obviously, this is his mom because she's this, whatever. She was there feeding the babies. So I was like, your mom. I assumed that was his mom. She was like very small. And then come to find out, Zeus is 96 pounds, soaking wet, like kind of spine showing because I can't put weight on him normally. I don't know. Very large dog.
Yeah,
they
he's
called
huge.
him a razor's edge pit bull. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, but Google tells me. I don't know. Very odd. Because I'm like, okay, I met this mom. Mom was fine. She was cool. She was like fine with me being around her babies. I felt bad though, because the people, they didn't have much money. So I was like, oh, every time I come, I'll just like bring a bag of food. Like, let me know what you need, whatever. So it's like buying the puppies food, whatever. And then I think I went back at like 4.5 weeks when they were like that old. And they were like, so which puppy do you want? I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm just kind of like looking at them or whatever. And there was 11 puppies total. So they're all like laying in this like pile of like napping puppies. And I just walk in and Zeus literally climbed over all of his other puppies. And I was like, that one, he picked me. Oh my God, this is so great. Had I known that now, I would have never picked that one because I don't want the one that's obsessed with humans. I want the one that's like, hey, what's up, human? I'm going to come sniff you and I'm going to go chill.
Mm-hmm.
I don't wish I had picked a different one, but if I had known what I know now, I probably would have picked the one that came up and was like, hey, what's up? And then just like walked away.
Right.
And just did their own thing.
Right.
Instead of climbing over 10 other puppies. It was like, yes, this is sick, you know, because he's that dog. Like you can't control his chill. You can with training, but like he is genetically that dog. He's like, hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah. Like he's just like in it for the human. So didn't know that at the time, whatever. Cool. He's really excited around people. So I was like, I can't have this huge dog. He was every month he was like that many pounds plus like 0 at the end. So he was like, at 3 months old, he's 30 pounds. 4 months old, he's 40 pounds. 5 months old, he's 50 pounds. I was like, damn, this is a big dog. This is becoming a big dog. So I think he was like 16 and a half, almost 17 weeks. And I was like, I need to have this dog neutered. At the time, I had no idea about anything. I was just like, let's do it. So I had him neutered. Wish I had waited because now he's kind of wonky. He's got some weird like joint stuff, whatever. But, you know, you don't know until you know. So fast forward, it's like 3 years old. I start doing off-leash pack walks. And we would go to a dog park known in, I don't know, Dorchester? Victory Park? Yeah. I think it's technically Dorchester. So I'd never really brought him because I was like, he doesn't really like enjoy it. But when we would do like the woods hikes, he was like, heck yeah, this is sick. So we would do the woods hike. And then after the woods hike, we'd go to the dog park, which like, I don't know why we did it. There was a turning point at some point where I was like, I am not down with the park at all. I'm only doing pack walks in the woods. I'm never doing that. And my boss at the time was like, totally respect that. Fine, cool, whatever. But it wasn't until like Zeus's like incidents. So one of them specifically, we did our pack walk at first in the woods, came back to Victory Park. There was this other, it was like a pity pointer mix. And he was like real high strung and like crazy about the ball. And Zeus was like cool. He was definitely overstimulated. And any overstimulated, uncontrolled environment, Zeus is like, okay, like I can do what you need me to do. But if I'm far enough away for like that feedback, like I don't know what's going to happen. So him and Gunner take off. And at some point, I don't know if like Gunner brushed into him, something like that. It was just like overstimulated environment. Something happened and Zeus and him, like I want to assume that he like bumped into Zeus. And Zeus like, I think he nailed him in the hind and then he like somehow got him in the neck. And we couldn't figure out if he had like committed to biting his like neck or if he was like stuck on his collar. But then somebody else at the time jumped in and was literally like punching Zeus in the face. And I was like, that was like that like holy moment that I was like, this dog doesn't even care that he's being punched by a grown man in the face. He is just like not even there. My dog was not there anymore. And I was like, wow, this is so dangerous. And like, I'm like, oh my God, I felt so bad because I was like, why would I ever put my dog in that situation? But I like, didn't know. You don't know until you know. And it's just awful. But it took a while to get him off. And then all the other dogs too, like when there's a dog fight, if there's other dogs around, especially off leash, they want it to end immediately. And it's not that they want to jump into the fight necessarily. Some might. But for the most part, the other dogs around were trying to end it. And he got like a chunk out of his ear taken out by another dog that was trying to stop it. The person that was trying to break up the fight. And I was like holding dogs back. He was trying to break it up. He got bit a bunch. Like everything, all the dogs are just like, this needs to end now. It was awful. And then Zeus finally, I don't know what it took for him to let go, but he finally let go. The other dog like booked it. And he didn't end up having like crazy injuries, thank God, but it was absolutely a bite hold. There was no shaking, but it was a bite hold and he was like on it. And he was like, my genetics are telling me that I am committed to this and this is it. This is everything. And I wouldn't say that he was having fun doing it, but I would say like absolutely genetics were like way overpowering. And that was my dog before kids. Like I put so much training into that dog. And that was that moment when I was like, it does not even matter how much training you put into a dog. Genetics are absolutely going to overpower if the situation like presents itself. Right.
Right. Yeah. And I think that that's really the point that I wanted to drive home in this episode by using examples that you just gave and kind of talking, maybe you can talk to Katrina about your dogs and just things that you've experienced as well. But, you know, that whole situation where a grown man is punching your dog in the head and he's just seeing red.
He did not. Yeah, that was
you know what I mean? There's no like thinking involved. It's just, there's a time, you know, it's the same as we have certain flight or fight responses and nobody taught us how to do that. Like some people are going to fight back and other people are going to shut down and shirk away. Yeah. And, you know, those responses are genetic.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, and I think to deny the fact that dogs have the same tendencies And I think if we're talking about aggression specifically, please feel free to disagree with me because I'm just throwing numbers out there.
Yeah.
But like maybe 80 or 90% of aggression is just fear-based, right?
Oh
the
my
dog
God.
just like, feels overwhelmed and is backed into a corner, doesn't know. And it might not look like a corner. It might look like a wide open room, but they're interpreting that as just not being able to escape. And, they bite out of that fear.
Yeah.
And then there's types of aggression like perhaps Zeus has towards other dogs in those situations. Or, when you hear about a horrible incident where a family dog mauls a child or an older relative or something like that, where, that dog could have pointed to the vulnerable one and been like, here I go.
I know.
Where that type of aggression is going to be completely different, obviously completely unacceptable. But, to again, deny the fact that it's there because you want to have a preconceived notion of what a dog should be.
That's not fair.
It's not fair to the dog, and it's not fair to other people's dogs that are around. Like in your situation, I'm sure if you could go back in time, you would be like, I feel so bad for this dog, like whatever. I
was like, how can I help? Can I pay the vet bills? And they were like, don't even worry about it.
Nobody ever feels good in those
situations.
Absolutely not.
Well, there are just a-holes that just walk away and they're like, sorry.
Yeah. But I was like, can I have your information? Let me follow up and pay your vet bills or whatever. And they were like, no, it's fine. Don't even worry about it. And I'm like, I'm worried about it, man.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's awful.
It's hard. Katrina, do you want to talk about your dogs a little bit?
I mean, my dogs currently don't really have many problems, but I think it's because I haven't put them in those positions, but it's because I've learned from the terrible past that I had with my first dog, Maddie, who, I got her, I was probably 18 or 19 years old, just out of high school, living on my own, and always wanted a dog. And I found her on Craigslist. And, she was an Airedale mixed with an American Bulldog. So, knowing both of the breeds, they're not typically the most friendly with people and dogs, have a lot of maybe protective instincts, but I would definitely say everything with her was fear-based.
Yeah.
So we had some bad experiences with her, and she's not with us anymore because I wasn't the person to give her what she needed. And at the time, anybody who could have helped me was recommending, her being put down because the liability that whoever adopted her would end up with.
Totally.
Any rescue with her, it would have just been her being euthanized. So
right,
I had to make that tough decision myself and be there to kind of support her in that scenario in life.
Yeah, that's a toughie.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's like Airedale Terrier and a Mollister dog. It's like that is the definition of like a pit bull,
and it was an
it
accident
probably did not
litter.
look like anything that you would consider.
Everyone
to be.
thought she was a pit bull. I never saw it, but she definitely took more characteristics from the Airedale, I think. But I was just really young and very happy to have a dog, and probably put her in a lot more uncomfortable positions that I really meant to. So it's, sadly didn't end up very well, but was able to learn from the mistakes and, not repeat them.
Yeah, no, totally. I was thinking the other day about dog breeds, and I personally don't love the working dog breeds for myself just because I have a very laid back personality, and the thought of like having my own Rottweiler is completely overwhelming when I see what Lori has to do, like the type of work that she has to do to put into having him be a great dog. And even still, like he acts like a Rottweiler sometimes, like he will bark if somebody's outside, and and if a dog challenges him, like I wouldn't do that. You know, like it's, you know,
not.
Yeah.
it's those type of situations where you have to realize like who the dog actually
Right,
is
and
instead of
respect that,
trying to
yeah.
like put him in this square box that's
Yeah.
just not going to work. And then doing things that are going to be able to allow him to express himself through sports or even just like throwing a ball around or, you know, playing tug in the yard. All those things are like super duper important. And I mean, I remember like the dog that got me into training was a pit bull that got brought back because the owner couldn't handle the dog. And he just had the most insane drive, like probably of any dog that I've had just come to me for walking. I mean, he could play tug, like hang from things. Like he was so athletic, and the owners just had no idea what to do with this dog because he, you know, just had a lot of energy in a way that needed to be expressed in a certain way. And the woman would say to me, I'm walking him for like 5 miles a day and it's just not doing anything. And
That's
I'm
a
like,
warm up for
and
him.
and I'm like, well, it's because, you know, X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. And he needs a way to express his drive. And when you tell a normal person, like, okay, like you got this dog because you thought it was going to be a cuddly couch potato, but really, like, you need to get a bite wedge and teach him how to out. They look at you like you just lost your mind.
Like,
but like,
why would I encourage that behavior?
Yeah.
right.
Well, it's there and you have to put it somewhere.
Right. Yeah. So talk a
Please.
little bit about that. I mean,
Oh man,
yeah.
about Zeus and how drivey he is.
Yeah, because it's a natural part of who the dogs are. And I think that that's something that, again, like cultural society is saying that they're pibbles and that they're nanny dogs and that they're couch potatoes.
I probably
and that they're,
said the pibble thing once or twice.
which is
'cause
fine.
I was like 20 when
but
I
I
got
feel like
it.
it's
was
fine
gonna
as long
say,
as you
but-
also realize the other side of it.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and I would always break it down to people. I would, as best as I could with like my own personal experiences. I'm like, hey, he is not perfect. No one believes me. And that's what everyone's like, oh, she's so strict all the time, even family members, until they see him in a situation that they would rather not have seen him in. And I'm like, hey, in uncontrolled environments, when push comes to shove, he will not start it, but he will absolutely end it. And I guess I'll just go into the
talk about
Emily situation.
Yeah, talk about the
So-
Emily situation.
I grew up with this dog, Emily. She's awesome. She's still alive, kicking, blind as heck,
Hey.
but she's doing her thing. And Zeus, I got Zeus when Emily was probably like 3 or 4. She had started going blind around 3. I think by 4, she was seeing a little bit of like shadows and such. And then by the time Zeus was around like 4 or 5 months old, she was pretty much completely blind, but they were always cool together. He respected her personal space because he's like the avoidance king anyway. So he'd try to play with her and she'd be like, no, man. And he'd be like, okay, bye. He'd go like mess with the cat or whatever. And then, so they've always been super familiar. Even after I moved out into this house. I think Zeus was like 6 months old, technically. And we'd still go back and visit. And then I ended up having kids. So then I'd bring everyone back. Like we'd always see each other. And then Emily ended up living here. Was it 2019 to 2020 or 2020 21? I don't know, whatever. She was here for a whole year, so they've always been fine. They can coexist together. They don't even have to be separated in the house because Zeus doesn't mess with her. She doesn't mess with him. She just finds a spot, lays in it. She's really blind, so it's like I'm comfortable here, and he respects that. So there was a family dog that was over, and Zeus and the family dog were in the backyard. And they're super cool together, same as Zeus and Emily, like kind of grew up situation together. Very cool. I was asked to go to the store and I was like, hey, make sure that Emily doesn't come outside because Zeus and the other dog were in the back. And okay, cool. I get back from the store and it's like a freaking mess. And I'm like, what happened? What went on? Whatever. Zeus and other dog were in the dog yard. Emily comes outside. I assume, because I wasn't there, from the information that I gathered, Zeus and the other dog were in the dog yard at the fence. And Zeus was like, hey, what's up? Like, that's the dog I know. This is sick. And the other dog was like, I don't even know that dog. That's not cool. But was still like overstimulated and like aroused. So there was tail wagging. And that was like the general consensus. Oh, their tails were wagging, which I've said to numerous people before that
Doesn't always mean the dog's
tail
happy.
doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Do you watch dogs kill things? Their tails are wagging the entire time. Whatever. So Gate opens. Emily comes in, I guess. I don't know. Wasn't there. Then other dogs started taking cheap shots at Emily, and Zeus was just like, oh, okay, let's go. And literally like grabbed Emily, I'm pretty sure by the neck. I don't think like she had punctures and like scratches and like abrasions other places, but I'm pretty sure that Zeus was just like bite here and then like no shaking or anything like that, but like bite, commit, hold, like was on her. My husband ran out and he was like, again, like I don't know why we didn't discuss how to break up a dog fight.
You don't
But
know until you
I
know.
And
You
also
don't
like
think of that
and at the
happening.
moment,
Why do we sit down as a family and teach our children how to
Nobody
choke out a
prepares
dog?
for those
Right.
things. Nobody does because you never think that it's going to happen until
and
it
that's
does.
what I was like,
Just did a perimeter.
What?
I know. I sent that out. I sent the message. Thank you. Shut the door, please. Thanks so much. You can go watch TV. Okay, bye. So, where were we at? Oh, so I did not
So
teach
your
my
husband went out.
So he went out and he was like doing everything that he possibly could at the time. Again, another adult male. He's a very strong man. He lifts weights all the time. Was like trying to physically maneuver this dog off of Emily, and like I don't know. I think he said he was like trying to like punch him or whatever, and like there was just nothing. He was not letting go. And at that time, I think he was around 7 or 8 years old. So I just want to say the reason he let go was because he just gassed out. I don't know. Yeah. I really don't know because he was like kind of older anyway at the time. And I just came home and I was like, what even happened? Zeus was away somewhere. And then the other dog was away too. And then Emily was just outside. And I was like, what is happening? So I started hosing her off because I was like, I need to like see. She's a thick coated like lab, like, you know, regular lab. But
you can't see
anything. She's a black lab. You can't see anything. I'm just like, as I'm putting like,
I'm
like putting a like white towel to her and there's just like blood. And I'm like, I don't know where this is all coming from. Like, I just got to see. I was like, honestly, like, I'm just going to take her to the VCA in Weymouth. I'm going to have them like shave her down, clean it out, and then we'll see where we're at. So brought her over there. They shaved her out. I think she had at least 2 punctures on her neck. And then she had like other like scratches and abrasions. So as Zeus had her, the other dog was taking cheap shots. And there was like, it was so uncontrolled, like everything about it was so uncontrolled. Because I was like, if I were to ever introduce that separate dog and like everyone all together, like would have been on a pack walk only and all this other stuff. Or like if the gate was open or something, I would have been able to be like, yo, Zeus, back up. Like I'm going to watch this interaction, watch it play out. And then I would allow, you know what I mean? But I'm like, you can't even like control or like even comment on something that has happened that you're not there for. So I was just like, you know what? But Emily, we had to like do hot compresses for like weeks. It was just so bad. And then obviously like we kept them like crated and rotated for a bit, but then afterwards it was like we were able to integrate them back in and it was no issue.
Yeah, but because it was like there was some specific trigger. That
exactly.
Was,
and that's what I've always said. He will not start it, but he will end it. So so I'm like, I don't want to blame the other dog, but I'm like, if it was just M walking up to the fence, he'd be like, what's up, M? I'm like, Auntie M, you know?
Right.
He's grown up with her. So he would have been like, whatever. It doesn't matter if there's a fence in the way. It doesn't matter if there's a crate in the way and you just open the crate door. He's like, what's up? I know you. But the fact that there was like that other energy present and that was shifty. He was like, oh, what? Whoa. I was like excited and now I'm aroused and now I'm frustrated and now you're frustrated. And oh man, okay, it's a thing. Let's pop off.
Right. And none of this has to do with training, right? So
no.
This doesn't have to do with...
I couldn't have been like Zeus out or like down, like nothing.
Right. It's
absolutely nothing.
It's purely temperament and it's, you know, in that situation, it's going to be a management issue. And, you know, we always say management fails at some stage. Yeah. I mean, you're telling this story, you're a dog trainer. That's a lot of vulnerability on your part, you know, to talk about this stuff. I mean,
most people don't even know about that story.
No, because
I'm like, I wasn't there, so how can I even talk about it?
Right.
I can give you some details, but it's still like I came home screaming at everyone, like screaming in everyone's face. So I didn't get much information. And then when we tried to talk about it, it's not like they wanted to talk to me about it because I was
not happy
screaming
about what
but
was
I was
going
like,
on.
But at that time they're like, oh, we just didn't know and blah blah blah. I'm like, but for years I've been saying these things and you guys just didn't believe me. You just thought I was so strict.
Well, I think it's because it was
Ignorance,
managed so
too.
well
I
that
know,
that
that's
like
true.
the
They're like,
idea that the
"Ooh."
dog, the idea that Zeus just had a really good temperament and could handle
Yeah.
this dog traffic that, let's face it, like a lot of dogs that are his breed like can't
No
handle
way.
that. You know what
Oh
I
my
mean?
God,
So
no.
I think that that's huge. One thing that I'm gonna like kind of change gears a little bit, but not totally. One thing that I've seen in the past like couple of years are a couple of examples of dogs where people will rescue a pit looking dog. And we probably should say too, there's like this whole argument about whether or not we should be calling dogs that look like pit bulls because an American pit bull terrier is a specific breed.
Exactly.
A Staffordshire terrier is a specific breed. We say pit bull when we, see a smiling face and a fat head and like eyes that are kind of wide apart and almost look like a human, right? They have those characteristics. I have to be completely honest with you. I didn't actually know what a pit bull looked like until I started working with dogs because they look so different.
No, that's
like
true,
people
though.
say like, oh, my uncle's pit bull. I like look at that dog. And then somebody else would say, oh, this is my pit bull. I'm like, that looks like a totally different dog. And I didn't know enough about dogs to be able to, see the commonality.
I had to, look at that chart. It was like a chart that broke down like all the bully breeds.
Right. And
even now I'm like,
Zeus it's the variety in the American Pit Bull Terrier is pretty diverse. Like Staffies are a little bit more,
I feel like
standard.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
there's a lot.
We've had a few pits come in, and the rescue will send video to the new adoptive owners of, the dogs playing with a litter of puppies in the backyard, or the dogs in the foster home, and there are other dogs coming in and out. And it kind of gives the owner this idea that like the dog likes other dogs. And then they start settling into their home, and all of a sudden the dog is redirecting on the owner during walks.
Yep.
Just super duper, like, I'm not even going to say leash reactive, like it's pure aggression, you know what I mean, on the leash. And, to the point where like, I asked the people like, okay, if you drop the leash, like, what do you think would happen? And they're like, I don't even want to know.
Never do that.
I'm like, okay, are you going to call that reactivity? Like, okay, you can call it reactivity. I would call that like aggression, but okay, whatever.
The redirecting is a big thing for me. Like that's like you want to take that out somewhere and you don't care where.
Right. And it's really difficult when, I don't even want to go there, but I think in a lot of situations, the dogs, have that tendency and then also aren't bonded with the owner at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then like underfulfilled and all the other
things. So it just kind of snowballs. But I've had this happen like 4 times in the last couple of years where it's the same scenario. The owner is like, they sent me all this footage with this dog like playing with other dogs, and they were at Boston Animal Control walking around the lobby with other dogs, and like everything was fine, and now like she has to wear a muzzle. And I kind of know what's going on, but at the same time, like I don't have a clear and concise answer other than kind of like acceptance of the pack, you know what I mean? Right. Those kind of like simple things that we just we just accept because we are around dogs, and we know that once they understand like who's in the pack, they're cool with it. And then when somebody isn't in the pack, they're not cool with it.
Right.
But you had posted an interesting photo, and it had like a herding breed dog working and a scent hound working and a pointing dog working. And then, it basically said, we all accept that these are genetic traits of these herding and pointing and retrieving dogs. But, when you see 2 pit bulls fighting, it's
just doing what they're bred to do.
It's doing what they're bred to do.
Guys,
People say, people say like, oh, it's only how they are raised, right? So like that to me is a perfect example of where people can just start when it comes to these dogs. Like, be realistic about the fact that if you get a dog that may somewhere along the line have been bred for, dog aggression. Oh, I got to turn myself down.
You're screaming.
I might be screaming. That may have been bred for like dog aggression, that like that
may be there.
They're gonna have dog aggression.
Yeah.
And you can train it and you can work on it, but it might never completely
go away.
Yeah.
You're never going to be able to trust that dog.
That's the advice I was never given
No one
with
ever
my
said that to
first
me.
dog. It was all this false hope and just stuff food down their throat, and they'll eventually end up being okay.
It'll be great.
And it did nothing but make
it
things
worse.
so much worse.
It's so true. But then looking back to, you're like, man, knowing that dog, I would have never put them in that situation.
Yep.
Why would I even force that?
Terrible situations.
That's wild. But then at the time, you're like, well, I'm just going with what I know and what people have told me. And the people that have told me these things are reputable enough,
I'm paying them to tell me these things. So it's got to be right.
I do think there has been a shift too, though.
How so?
Lately. Well, not really with like the general public, but definitely within like the dog nerds that we all like kind of like know, or like people that we kind of work with, that they're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense, you know, with like just like the drivey breeds. Maybe it's just like the realm that I'm in, but I just feel like a lot of people are, instead of being afraid of it and being like, no way, that's not a thing, they're like, wait a second, this is actually a thing, but also like, this is super fun, let's go. How do I do this better to fulfill my dog? Like, I feel like biological fulfillment is more of like a topic now, when it was more just like you know, sorry, interrupted by a child taking photos. I know. Thank you so much. Love you. Okay, bye.
Yeah, that wasn't even a word that or a phrase, I should say, that was
I never knew that
was
was a
even
thing.
like a thing. Well, I also think that people back in the day used to do more things that made sense with their dogs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you had a lab, like,
You do lab things.
You do lab things with your dog. Yeah, exactly.
Fetching
exactly.
in the water.
Exactly. And now it's like, I do think that people get pit bulls thinking that they're going to be couch potatoes.
I believe that too.
Because
they
they have an uncle that has a dog that's the best dog
chill.
ever, and he's super chill.
The uncle probably takes him nowhere, and that dog's just like, man, it's cool. I just kick it on the couch. It's sick. We play fetch and like Dunyons.
The dog could just be an individual.
It could be that too. I mean, that's usually that too.
They're all individuals. There's not like, of course, there's going to be outliers.
Yes.
That act.
But when we're talking about these mixes, they're all mixes. If you're getting it from a rescue, you're not going to a reputable breeder that's like, I breed Staffordshire Terriers or I breed American Pit Bull Terriers. Like, you're just getting this mutt thing that like could probably be listed as a lab. Like,
and they usually are.
I told my mom was Zeus, and usually, they're like lab mix, and it's like, okay, but then that dog gets older, and then your vet's like, hey, I could lose my license for calling your dog a lab. That happened to me. And you're like, well, didn't really know. Like, how is that responsible? Being able to like pet these dogs out as labs when they're definitely not. And these people being like, oh, I love it. You know, I live in this apartment. There's a bunch of other dogs. It's great. And now they're dealing with these crazy behavioral issues because they live around constant triggers. And if your house/yard can't be your safe place, like, how do you expect this dog to live in life?
Right.
Like, that's so wild to me. I don't know.
I feel like with the pit bull breeds, they struggle the most with it, because I would be more comfortable if like a Catahoula mix was called a nanny dog.
I think so too.
A pit bull, because there might be more of a chance. I mean, not if the Catahoula was mixed with a pit, because then you have like a real.
That's also
like
very
disaster.
Which is common too. I'm trying to think of like a beagle. Okay, like a beagle Catahoula mix.
Okay, fine.
Like take that, or like a beagle lab Catahoula mix.
You know
that. Okay, that would be better. You know, like than calling a pit bull a nanny dog, simply because
there's one photograph from like way back in the day.
One photograph from the day, but like you look at the bite fatality statistics, and they're off the freaking charts for pit bull breeds or pit bull dogs that look like pit bulls.
Yes. Like, when Jack was talking about like dog fighting, and I could just be like pulling this out of whatever I interpreted as whatever, but he was basically saying, and all of the research I've done too, is like, these dogs are meant to be in a pit with a bunch of, like, if you think about it, like, imagine a dog fight. I've never been to one. We'll never go to one.
No, thank you.
But how many angry people are at the outside of that ring? Because they bet money on these dogs, and there's like chaos and like all of this crazy stuff.
And everything.
And they have this one commitment to this one thing, and that is it. They're just all in. And obviously there's more to it than that. Like, they're all in because like their relationship with their owner is amazing, and that's like what they've got going and all that stuff. But like, that is so crazy that like this powerful dog is just able to fight another powerful dog and not give up. because they have that like fight and they're in it and they're probably at that point. He was talking about adrenaline that just dies off within the first, I don't even remember how many minutes. I'm not even going to put a word to it.
Well, yeah, they were like real game dogs.
This is, yes. But then if we had like I'm not saying that we'd have a variation of that, but even just like a poorly bred mix of that, like what do you expect we're going to get?
You're going to have a big X factor that may turn the aggression around on somebody like a
Absolutely.
person and not a dog.
And then for so many years, we saw nothing. Nothing was bad. Everything was great. And then out of nowhere, this one thing happened and there was just like this huge brawl between two dogs, or this, I don't know, a dog like bit someone or whatever. And it's not, I just feel like it's not like a golden retriever biting. If a golden retriever is biting, it's probably like, I mean, I've never been bit by one, but I would say their commitment is not. I've seen some sketchy things,
You've seen
but
some scary golden.
hell yeah!
In
I've
some
just
kennel
seen some stupid
situations,
ones.
I've seen
I used
super
to
stupid
have
ones and I've seen
to toss the bowl of food into its kennel
okay.
and
Yeah,
like hide
weird
behind
stuff.
the door to let it out, and
but
that was only
not
very
few and
small.
far between.
Yeah,
Not commitment to I'm going to kill you.
Yes, exactly.
Not
Well, I
that
also
seeing
think
red.
that people, they try to train different breeds to be personal protection dogs, and there's a big difference between a personal protection dog and a game dog that was used in a pit, right? So game dogs are used in a pit, like they did not have people aggression. They culled the dogs for people aggression.
Right.
But then you have these stupid people that just go and have a dog that shows some aggression towards a person, and they think, oh, this is going to be good for a personal protection dog.
Yep.
And it's
Horrible
like,
idea.
I remember thinking that. I felt so safe walking my super aggressive dog.
But
I'm not going to say that I don't say that.
In situations,
it
but
makes sense to think that.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah.
And I totally understand it being in those shoes at one point.
Right.
You know, I can look back and think
That's
back
true.
to that. But
I feel like now we're at the point where we like manage things like that. But people are like, oh, I can't believe you go in the woods alone with all those dogs. And I'm like, what do you mean though? Like, these dogs are so sketchy. I'm so safe.
Yeah, nobody bothers you.
I'm so safe. You can't even get within 20 feet of me.
Yeah.
If I really allowed, I'm like, well, if I was really in a dangerous situation, I just like pop a muzzle off and I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just see what happens. No, yeah, totally. And I think that that type of mentality, like what you're describing, Katrina, it's like, it makes sense to think, oh, this person like bit a human. Well, did they bite them because they were scared? They bite them because they felt bad because they're really just a huge wimp?
True.
Or did they actually walk up to somebody and lay into them? Like that's a totally different
the commitment
dog.
end of it too.
Yeah,
It's like there's so
a
many
totally different dog.
There's like that scaled. What is it called? The bite scale. Have you seen that?
I don't think so.
I gotta look it up. It's literally like, I think it's a 6-point system, and it's like how severe the bite was really. So it's like a 1 is like a fear nip and like I forget what it's called.
Yes. What's his name?
I want to say it begins with the B, but I'm probably just making that up. I'll have to look it up. But I feel like that's a good thing to look at too, because when I described Zeus's bites, it was definitely like commitment with like bite hold, but like no shake. But it was commitment to do damage there. There was intent to do damage. There was forward intent. There was damage, and like he sunk holes. I don't think he regripped that time, but he definitely regripped with the first incident at that dog park.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm trying. Ian Dunbar's did it.
Yes.
Yeah. For certain breeds, like for example, you have cattle dogs, Katrina, and it's kind of like, oh, they're hurting the children, and people think like that's funny, right?
Okay, so cute
or cute, yeah, and it's because people recognize, oh, they're cattle dogs, they herd things. But then if a bully breed shows dog aggression, they freak out.
I know. That's
and
true.
It's like, okay, well, we're so accepting of a Labrador that retrieves a ball. Mm-hmm. We're so accepting of a golden retriever that likes frisbee. Like, we're so accepting of these things that we literally bred them to do. And then when you have a dog that shows tendencies of doing what they were bred to do, like, you totally freak out. And then on top of it, it puts a lot of pressure on trainers to get rid of those behaviors when
we're just suppressing.
It's so hard
exactly.
to try and tell a person like, oh no, like we probably cannot stop this fully. Like,
you just got to put it somewhere.
Exactly. Like, where are we going to put this? And like, people are just like thrown off by that. It's like completely
I don't want my
insane
friend to think I'm like,
it's like they don't want their neighbors seeing them like do these intense games with their dogs and stuff. And it's like, but this is what your dog was meant to do and what your dog loves to do. And like,
loves it.
You're withholding that from them. And it's just...
Yeah, like your dog doesn't want to walk down the street on a leash.
My dog hates walking through the neighborhood.
Yeah, like
I'll be on a flexi lead and Klepto's all the way behind me. Like, what the hell are we doing, Ma? Like, horrible. Can we just trot around in the woods? Can I jump at trees? Like, let me do... why are we in the neighborhood? Why are we walking? Like, this is dumb. Like, this is not fun.
But to try to tell like your average person... Okay, like you have a dog aggressive pit bull and you live in a neighborhood, like you can't walk this dog. You're going to have to figure something else out. Their like mind is like exploding.
Well, and telling people that your dog doesn't need a walk too. People are like blown away by that. I mean, I was also like used to be somebody who is like, the walk is the most important thing ever.
Yeah.
But like I also wasn't just walking my dogs like through like neighborhoods and cities. Like I was going out into the woods and bringing them out to places to do these things. So like, I just feel like there's so many expectations.
I feel like low key
misconceptions.
Our brains think a little bit differently too. So we're like, when I'm like, I'm gonna take my dogs for a walk, like we go.
We're like, okay, trails. We're going in the woods for 2 hours.
I'm not like, hey,
we're not just like, okay,
10,
30 minutes, around
I'll do
the
that
block.
if we're doing weight pull. But like,
yeah.
That's because I know what is a quarter mile, with my up and down my dead end street. But if I have a little bit of time, which most people do, I'll just like drive to a spot 10 minutes up and then we'll do some off leash stuff.
Yeah,
or
like
even drag lines, flexies, whatever. It doesn't have to be off leash, but just like space for sniffing. I do that all the time. Most of my day school dogs, those stress messes, we do sniff walks. We'll do a bunch of training here. And then I'm like, all right, like today, Ivy came in and she was like, typical Ivy. She was pretty cool. And then she got super stressed. And I was like, all right, we're going to do some place work. I'm going to see if I can show you out, get your harness on, and then we're going to go sniff. And then we went and sniffed for, I don't even know how long, but her and Kevin went buck wild sniffing on harnesses and flexies. And I know anyone that saw me, they were probably like, doing? But they had so much fun and they're just cooked. Done. But I feel like that's not something that we really pushed before.
Well, I think what Katrina just said was the big key is expectations.
Yeah.
Like people go into dog ownership with a list of expectations. I'm going to walk my dog on a leash. They're going to like to play ball. They're not going to jump on anything in the house. They're, I don't need the crate because they're just going to be a good dog. And all of a sudden they get a dog that they don't know who the parents of the dog were, so we can't make any of those expectations. If I get a dog from a breeder and I know, okay, this dog laid on a dog bed in the kitchen their entire life and never barked at the mailman, well, there's a pretty damn good chance, that my dog is, like they might be doing some of the same stuff. But like when you go to a rescue and get a dog, like you have no idea. Like,
no idea.
You have no idea. And of course, like training is going to influence that stuff, but
genetics are first.
Yeah, genetics come first. And I think that that's the switch that people need to make. And then once we do know that, okay, I need to take my expectations and throw them out the window. How do you find somebody that isn't going to push cookies into your dog's face in order to get them to do nothing? And it's really hard. I think it's extremely difficult to, say to people like, hey, like, I think that your dog might need to sniff more than they are on a loose leash for the next couple of weeks because you have, he's nervous. You don't have a good relationship. Like, there are things that are, you might have to readjust and have a really like kind of customized plan to work through some anxiety or put them in an environment where they just learn how to communicate with you. Like, I think one of the most, like sometimes you hear something and it could be the most simple, stupid thing, but it sticks with you. Like one thing Michael Ellis said when I was listening to him was that he takes dogs like totally out of their environment and into like a kennel room or kitchen or something like that, just so that they can build their communication system, which is what we do anyway. But like thinking about it that way of like, hey, this is how you're going to talk to me when we're outside. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like this is obedience. Like here's what we're going to learn. And then we go out there, like this is how we're going to communicate with each other. But just how much time that takes for each individual dog might vary.
So
You know
true.
what I mean? And then once we get into that environment, what is the dog going to be, feeling once they get there? Like what kind of hormones are they going to have?
Yeah.
What dictates the release of those hormones? They're freaking genetics. So it's like if you
Human
can't,
doesn't dictate
Science,
release of
man.
any
like
hormone.
if you can't get your brain behind that
Yeah.
idea, and the worst part about it is like, okay, we have Big E and Little E and Big B and Little B genes for a dog's color, a black lab, a chocolate lab, or a yellow lab. We have their color. We don't have a gene for aggression. You know what I mean? So
No,
it
true.
gets a lot harder because like we're talking about genetics,
Yeah.
and like all these people like to talk about genetics and like, okay, you're talking about genetics, but really you're just talking about, well, his dad liked to play in the mud. So, that's what you're talking
That's
about when
true.
you talk about genetics. Like, of course, there's more science behind it than that. But, the bottom line is like, do you know the lines of this dog? Like,
Right.
what were their parents' like behavioral characteristics like? And I think the biggest piece of advice I want people to know when they rescue a dog, they are rolling the dice down a
100%.
crapshoot. And it doesn't mean you're going to have a bad dog, but it
No.
means, like what Katrina was saying, like you're going to have to adjust your expectations for how you're going to have to handle and train that dog.
As an individual.
Yeah,
literally.
exactly. Because you just don't know. You just don't know. And like you might want a dog that you can play fetch with or that you can walk down the street, but maybe you're going to have to get a weight pull harness. Maybe you have to jump in the van and go down the street and go to the park. Maybe you're going to have to take your dog swimming more than you think that you need to. Like I remember the seminar that I went to last year at the same seminar.
Yeah,
There was
you
a
both
woman.
went to that one.
Oh, you guys,
together.
we were all there, but we didn't know each other.
I
Katrina
was
wasn't,
not.
I was-
oh, you weren't.
guys were.
Okay, yeah, but I didn't know
Yeah.
Sam.
I
yet.
knew I was like behind you in conversation. I was like,
But there was a woman there with a stocky blue pit, and she had like a handle on his harness.
yeah.
And she literally used to take him in and out of the building by like throwing him over her shoulder. And I actually asked her because like I ask a lot of questions at these things. Like I don't care if I
Yeah.
look stupid. I'm
That's
like,
what they're there for.
but I'm like,
I feel that way.
and it
too.
was just a woman. She had driven all the way from New York to come to this seminar.
Yeah. Because I was like,
And she had worked with J-Jack. And I'm like, why are you doing that instead of walking him out on a leash? And she's like, oh, because this is what works. And I was like,
Alright.
oh,
okay.
I mean,
I was like,
all right.
yeah, because like when she
Hey.
puts him down and he's on a leash, like the dog is literally like, his nose is like a pig nose on the ground and he's like pulling her. He's so drivey. Like this dog has so much drive that it's like he needs to either be like in place at her feet
Wow.
or like working, or she just picks him up and carries him. Like, and I was like, all right,
mean,
yeah,
hey.
like, hey,
You can
it works.
physically
Like
do that
that's
and it works.
well, and my Frisbee instructor told me to do the same thing with my dog because, as Katrina knows, on our way out to the field, he barks the whole time because he's like yelling at me, like, "Hey, let's go, get
Yeah.
moving." And I don't want to like kill that because I want him to want to play with me.
Yeah.
And I haven't done it because lately he's been actually pretty good at like just chilling until like the last second and barking. But she was like, just carry him to the field so he doesn't waste all his energy. Because
Yeah.
if he barks at me the whole time, like he's tiring himself out.
True.
So then when he goes to play, he's not as on point. So she goes, just carry him. And I'm like, well,
it could build up frustration.
for
to the
him,
event
he doesn't
too,
mind.
maybe, or-
But like,
But I'm
it
saying
was
like
an
good
interesting
frustration.
idea.
Like,
yeah.
oh, like
It's
it's
coming
harnessing
now.
that
Yeah.
power, like instead of like wasting it on barking, like pick him up and withhold, like with Arson, all I have to do is like, I don't even have to hold his collar. I just like touch him. It's like, oh my God. Okay. Like
Something's happening.
You could stop me, but you're, like it gives that like just enough motivation to like, oh, you could hold me back from what I'm doing. And I don't know, just give that extra
Little
like drive into it,
But you don't think of that.
No.
You don't think like, okay, I need to do this task. My dog's literally going to sleep the entire rest of the day after we play Frisbee. My dog's he gets gassed. I'm so lucky. But like, who would think like, oh, a dog trainer is going to carry their dog out onto this
I
field before playing? Like, that's thinking outside the box because it's doing what you need to do in order to get the job done and adjusting your expectations to get there. You know what I
For
mean?
sure.
And, like I have the opposite end of the spectrum living with Laurie because like she's so heavy on the obedience because she's always, she's had like really brilliant, wonderful bred dogs, that can perform at these like really high levels, and she can put that type of pressure and like, in that old school type of way. So I feel like I am almost kind of getting the best of both worlds because I have that structure, and then I also have like, she's like, if I see you with that flexi lead in your hand one more time, I'm going to start beating you with it. And I'm like, it's like, she would never do that ever. But like, I'm like, I just need to try to get this dog to like me and not run away. So that's why I'm using this thing. But like, she just never, she doesn't use that type of stuff because she just has a different type of mentality.
It's
and
so hard to
it still
teach
works
other
in the,
people
I don't
too.
even, I
It's
never
like,
do.
I'll
I never
use it,
do.
but like I would never recommend any of my clients to.
Yeah, and that's why
she's
she
not
doesn't
committed enough.
No,
to,
and that's why she doesn't want me to use it because she's
If
like,
they
Leah,
see
like
you-
nobody
It
is
sets a
gonna
bad
know how to use
example,
this thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
I know, but it really is
Like
much
I show up
better.
to a dog's house, I'm like, we're doing flexies today, and they're like, what?
the first time
I'm
I
like,
mentioned that to an owner, they're like,
trust me.
oh my goodness. And
Me, I'm not telling you to buy one. Me,
this is what I do. You don't do this.
You can watch me do it. Don't try this at home. Do not.
It's really hard to teach somebody how to use one of those
know.
things properly.
Just a regular
feel
leash
like-
in general. Like it's just a
Yeah, that's hard enough.
foreign concept.
Today with the 2 dogs on the flexies, I'm like, I'm totally buying that dual one. I'm doing it.
I've thought about it, but I thought it may not be that great.
I'll
but
let you know.
I'll test. I'll borrow
I'll try it on the little
Yeah.
dogs.
I want to 2-hand my flexies.
Have you ever tried to hold 2 flexies?
It's awful.
Yeah, no, I
awful.
actually have never done that because I only take one dog out at a time. But all of the dogs I've trained off leash in the past like couple of, like the past year, I've used the flexi for everything until they're ready to be off the leash, and then I'll have them drag because it's like a lot cleaner.
It keeps it. I used to, when we did the off leash pack walks, I've had that same flexi since 2017 because I would clip it to the back of my backpack, and all new dogs would be on the flex, and they'd be like literally behind me with the pack of dogs, and none of the other dogs would be stepping on the leash because it's up, and it keeps them like kind of guided. So that's how I used to use flexis. Now it's different, but literally it was like all new dogs that I was like, I know they're right behind me. They're like carabinered to my backpack. Their leash is up. They're not getting corrected by another dog's feet. And it kept them in line. And then it was like flexi to a long line, to a short line, to off.
Yep.
That's exactly.
And that was like the protocol, which sounds so crazy to people. I'm like, no, literally like my big black flexi is from 2017. That thing's still kicking.
Yeah. No, it's a great tool. Again,
if used correctly.
Adjusting your expectations for what you thought was dog training or how you thought you were going to have to, work on off-leash stuff. Because a lot of people just throw their dog off the leash and hope for the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
how
like if
how
they
do
have
you
bad
feel
pack
comfortable
drive,
doing that?
I've never
It's
felt
like,
that
well,
way.
I'm not
Well,
until
we're
I
all neurotic,
am, and
so-
that's when I do it. And
Yeah, that's wild. Just now, a week ago, was Bobby's first off-leash pack walk.
Just Bobby here?
Yeah.
Nice.
And I've had him for...
How'd he do?
He did awesome. He didn't even know he was off-leash.
And that's
great.
what
idea.
you want, I feel. Like,
He was like-
you want them to just...
There was one time,
Feel
and I have like
connected.
the e-collar on him because we've definitely done conditioning with that. And I definitely, not that I need it, but I will not take my personal dogs off leash without some form of like backup. Just won't do it. And at one point I was like, I kind of like panicked a little because Kevin was up ahead, and then I had Griffin on leash with me, and I was like, Bobby, like where Bobby? And then
He's
he was
right
like,
at your feet.
yeah, he was. And I was like,
Arson's
what a good boy.
always right behind me,
Yep,
tripping
whole time.
on him.
oh,
Where is he?
I was like, what a great guy. And then we did our second one on Sunday, and he did amazing. They did drag lines for that, but it was so great.
That's
It
awesome.
was so good. I never had to touch the leash.
I love little dogs off
Oh.
leash.
It's the best.
Yes.
I don't take them as clients.
Why?
I get too nervous.
They're the best.
I
My
get
little
too
Pomeranian
nervous.
puppy
Yeah.
is my favorite
Oh my God.
client. He is the feistiest little thing.
My kids are obsessed with them too.
Yeah, he's still under a year. He's probably like 11 or 10 or 11 months right now. But I took him out for like a drag line walk, and recall was just
Fire.
so perfect.
great.
And yeah, I was
Where are
this
you going?
little 3-pound
Nowhere.
thing.
The world is
Yeah.
too big and too scary for you. You like
He's
exploring it
just-
with me. Where are you going? Oh,
So
I love them.
awesome.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I was never a little dog person. Now I'm like, they have way more personality than my big dog. My big dog is like drive, food, sleep. Okay. That's it. He's like, oh yeah, you're cool. But he would totally go with anyone else. If they had food or like a tug, he'd be like,
The first time I dropped my
Later.
dogs off with you, and they were just like,
bye.
"See ya."
Cool.
Don't
Like
care.
she's got cool things. We were like beating up a tree or something. So bye.
Barely met you, and I was like,
Literally.
"All right, whatever."
They know they'll be
She's
safe
got
here.
food. I think there's toys here.
I think.
Oh man, that is funny. Yeah, having a medium-sized dog is a little bit, not the best of both worlds because he's not
No.
little or big. No, he acts like he's like 90 pounds, but yeah,
He's not.
he's not. He's taught me a lot though. As a from a training perspective, it's
Yep.
like I couldn't have asked for a better dog.
Like teacher dog.
A
Thank
teacher
you
dog,
so
yeah,
much.
110%.
Yeah.
Because he's so weird
Yeah.
that
But he's so good too. I mean,
he's so awesome.
Yeah.
Like he's so
I want to
friggin'
meet both
awesome.
of your dogs so
But
bad.
he's weird because he just doesn't he shouldn't like anything that he likes
Yeah.
because he's a Beagle Min Pin mix.
Wait, did you like embark him or
Yeah.
something? Oh my
Those
God.
were his most prominent breeds, and
That's-
he like loves retrieval games and being off leash. And it's like
it's like Winnie, the Win Pin. She's like the best off leash dog ever.
it's weird.
You say
I
her,
love
she
it.
just zips around and she's always right there.
Just the best.
Yep. But
That's such a cool mix, though.
it is. He's a good boy. It's just, I think it kind of helps me relate to people that have to adjust their expectations.
Yeah.
When they have a dog, and I think that it is relatable for people. He's trained, but he's not flawless because he just folds under a lot of pressure, and I know how to help him through it now. But I could never bring him to like the seminar. He
Oh
would just,
God, no! I would
yeah,
never bring
he was
It's
any of
not a
my
good
dogs.
place
he
for a
would
lot
just-
of dogs.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, he
I
would
kn-
just like probably be expressing himself the whole time.
Right, that
Slowly.
would- yes.
It's
Seriously,
just
I do-
like-
I do think that is a pretty difficult environment for most, but I also understand that it's a seminar that people like to see dogs worked, so obviously it's going to happen. But
Yeah, totally.
I said that to so many people. Oh my gosh, so many people. I was like, I would never bring any of my personal dogs here, and if I did, they'd be crating up in the room like you.
I was
And then
gonna
would
say
potty
it took
them
me a lot to bring them down, and it was only after
after it sizzled.
seeing the second day things calmed down a little bit, and
Mhm.
it wasn't like they were there with us the entire time. It was okay. One of them came down for a half hour and then went back up, and
Yeah.
it was very much rotated and controlled, and
as they could handle too.
yeah, we were regulating their emotions with play and everything in between. So yeah, it wasn't just tossing them in there.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
totally.
It's a lot of emotion and energy in those rooms.
I also would not be bringing my dogs there.
Yeah, I definitely would not be able to bring my guy there. Maybe Buddha just to show off, but like that's kind of rude.
But, like,
yeah, it's like,
yeah.
Hey, look at my awesome dog. Yeah, I bet you wish you had one. It's like, no.
Yeah, it's pretty cute.
Yeah, exactly.
He's
Like,
got a tail.
Yeah, he does. Oh my gosh! But you know what's
Beautiful.
funny about Boo? Like I
Oh.
take him on walks now, and I try to take him regularly because it's the only thing I do with him. Like Laurie literally does everything. People are legit scared of him.
Really?
Yeah, like when we walk on a leash, people will ask me like, "Oh, are we gonna be okay here?" Or they'll walk by and be like, "That's a Rottweiler," because you don't really see them very
No,
much.
That's true.
And he also has a tail, so
I love it,
sometimes
though.
people think that he's a mix or like something else, which it just makes me laugh so hard. Like when people ask if like things are gonna be. But I went on a
I
walk
love-
with him
I
last
would-
week, and literally 3 people were like either terrified or they said something to me about
Jeez.
like his breed and like. Is he gonna bite me? I'm like, no, he's not gonna bite you. Like, do you know how horrible that would
You
be?
think
Like,
that I would
I'm
let
like-
him?
I'm like,
I love
"Jeez."
that. Am I going to be okay? I don't know. Are you?
Are you gonna try and touch either of us?
That's
Like-
actually been my MO lately
What?
when people have off leash dogs that run up on us. I'm like, is everything going to be okay here? And like, I
Ooh.
use like a tone
Yeah, yeah.
so that they know like, oh, like this lady
Oh.
like doesn't really want me around because that's, I don't like yelling
You're not
at
gonna
people.
say it's friendly.
No, like I'm going to assume that like, unless you say something
throwing
like,
down.
yeah, exactly.
I'm so
because-
reactive.
Yeah.
I've learned that about myself.
I've had a lot of bad moments where I come off really hot sometimes, like just yelling, like, get your effing dog, like as it's charging at me, and what? And I just lose my goddamn mind.
Yeah, I was,
feel like it's so
and
hard.
I feel so terrible after, and also think of all the scary things that could have happened from
know.
my blowing up and these people and what they could have, done.
Oh, the people. Yeah. 'cause people are
back
freaking
towards us.
scary.
But yeah, it gets pretty heated sometimes. I have been trying to relax more, but
It's so hard.
with all
I
the
can't.
bad experiences in the
Yeah.
past, it's really hard to not be reactive
Mhm.
in that way. And I feel like I am also a reactive dog at heart.
Well, we were all on a big pack walk, and Brian was at the head of it,
Mhm.
and this guy had these two, like, what were they?
They were Springers of
Okay.
sorts, or maybe Brittany's.
Some kind of spaniely whatever. And I do not know how this man, Brian, handled this so well. He just body blocked and was like, nope, leash, now, nope. And he literally was so chill. And I was at the back. I was like, him, Katrina, somebody else in between, me, and then I think
It
Joe.
was a big walk.
It was a big group. And I was just watching it from behind.
On a
like,
very narrow
very
path, like
narrow.
no pullover space. So
None.
it was very intense.
And then after that, I was like, man, I really wish I could just handle that like Brian did. And then not even a week later, I was at that spot in Whitman with Mishka, the Corso, and this lady just like let her dog rip. And I just was like, you have ruined our day. And I was like, call your dog. She's like, I didn't know you were there. I didn't see you. I was like, it doesn't matter. I was here chilling with my dog and you have ruined our day. Like, I was like, dang, wish I could have been like Brian, but also like, I was so mad. So
I
mad.
always have like an initial like spurt, and then I have this want to just like calm everything down
Yeah.
and not to be,
or just dip.
it's also difficult because a lot of the spots where I'm at, like the dogs that are out are really friendly.
True.
And so I almost find that if I overreact,
It's
can
worse.
cause everything to be worse.
yeah.
And my dogs are also polite. Yesterday I was walking Marley, just a solo, and she's a pit like boxer mix. And these two pits with no leash on, no collar, nothing, come right over the hill. And I said, are we going to have a problem here? And he was like, no. And he started yelling for his dogs, and they were not coming back to him. And I'm like, listen, if you're calling your dogs and they're not coming back to you, I said, they don't deserve to be off of the leash.
Nope.
And I will say stuff like that if somebody's dog is just
Very clearly
like, he just wants to play, is like what he said. But like this dog had like wide eyes and like
play.
full hackles.
Yeah.
And he's a pit. And I'm like, my dog's a pit, but she's completely under control.
What kind
like,
of play does your dog
yeah, exactly.
enjoy?
Like, what exactly do
'Cause
you think
I have some
play?
pitties. They want to play, but
It's different.
the way they're playing is gonna get pretty messy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely do adjust my communication, but for the most part, I try to keep it calm because, like, I have a group that I took out today of 4 labs, and, like, I'm literally, like, falling over them because they're just, like, underneath my feet the whole time, and it's, like, if all of my hikes could be like that, I would be, like, so happy.
It's so great.
You know what I mean?
I wish more people had, like, stable dog.
Yeah, but,
A lot of people reaching out for a reason. Though.
Exactly.
So
Oh my
it's
God.
like,
Exactly.
I know. And then it's like, I don't
Yeah.
want to say no to you because I really like helping, like, I don't know, dogs live lives they normally wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah, and I think, to kind of circle back to the topic, it's like, figuring out what's going to be best for your dog and what they were meant to do based on who they are as a dog.
And if you don't even know that and can't even figure it out, figure it out.
Yeah, you can figure it out.
Tap into
you
it.
absolutely can figure it out,
Yeah.
but it's gonna
take time.
it's gonna take people thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the message, that we're all kind of giving is just like, you have preconceived notions. They might not totally be true. Start to adjust your expectations, especially if you have like a really powerful dog. And also to echo that Maligator Mom post, one of the things that she said at the very end was, you can love your dog unconditionally, but never trust them unconditionally. And I thought that was just a really great point.
Hit so hard.
Yeah, it hit so hard. And it doesn't matter if you have a big dog or a little dog.
No
like
way.
You always have to be not watching out, but not treating them like a human. Because like humans, like we can trust them unconditionally. You know, like a good spouse, like a kid that you have a good relationship with, or a best friend or something. Like you can have that expectation of them, but you can't have that expectation of a dog. And I think that element of like humanizing a dog is where people get into dangerous. Like serious trouble. So all right, I think we'll wind it down there. We've been railing on for a little while. Are you guys cool with that? You want to add anything? Thanks for being open about Zeus. That's a really
Zebra. He's the best boy ever.
Really
Don't
cool
listen to
thing.
the word I said. I'm just kidding.
I don't doubt it one bit.
Great.
I get it. The things happen. Trust me.
Set up for success.
It's key.
Great boy.
All right. Thank you for tuning in. Our next episode is going to be a Q&A. I meant to say at the beginning. I'm such an idiot. It's going to be a Q&A with Laurie and I, maybe one other person. But if you do have questions, you can send them in, Leah@fitpetboston.com, or I'll put a question box up on my Instagram for FitPet Boston Talks, FPB Talks on Instagram. I'll leave that up for a few days. We have a bunch of questions, but we're probably just going to pick ones that I think will help the most people. So, and if you guys get any, feel free to send them on over. It's always a gas when Laurie answers questions on the podcast, so stay tuned.
Love it.
And thank you too again for joining me tonight.
Of course.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.